when did this all start? Because it started with, Brendan, Aaron, you guys really just getting into fishing, and all of a sudden you created this brand, Hey Skipper, and an incredible YouTube following. So did you always have this like love of fishing growing up?
You want to go?
You go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I had never, I've been fishing maybe one time with my grandpa in Texas with like bamboo poles, and we caught maybe one catfish, but we didn't go fishing together until about a year into our relationship. And he was like, hey,
Oh wow.
like, let's go fishing. I was like, okay, you've been fishing with your dad since you were a kid, but I've never seen you fish. And we kind of got back into it together, I think. We were doing freshwater for a while, and then we just kind of started exploring our area and discovering new places together. And we were in college at the time as well, and our last year of college, and we started applying for grants and applying for like in idea competitions, because we had just started the YouTube channel actually. So Brendan like came to me and he was like, hey, like, I have this idea, like I'm like a YouTuber and I have like all these followers and we're doing this, and like this is just an idea. And we started on Instagram and started gaining some traction on Instagram, and then we were like, okay, let's start a YouTube, and no one from Instagram wanted to follow us to YouTube. So it was like a year or so of just like putting out content on YouTube and no one watching it. But we had the idea, and we were like going to this school and like, hey, we had this idea for this company that teaches people how to fish, and we're like getting people out on the water and we're connecting people, and we're all going to be online. And they were like, hey, that's kind of a cool idea. They gave us a little bit of money. And then we graduated and we had just a little bit of startup money, and we just decided, let's try it. It was like a whole conversation of, hey, like we need to discuss like whether we're going to apply for jobs or whether we're going to like actually try this idea together. Like it was like, hey, like if we really try this, like it'll happen.
We had to make a decision. Like I remember the point where we were like, okay, we either have to like do part-time work or like full-time somewhere else, start looking into career, or we give this our all for the next. We've got this funding from school. Let's try and take this and use it wisely, invest it wisely, and try and grow this into something real. And well, I think it all reflects back to our original core values of what we originally wanted with the company. We kind of stuck by our core messaging of like, we want to help people get outside and learn how to fish, because it's not easy to gather all this information from many different people, many different sources. And many people are teaching how to fish. In fact, there's a lot of people who don't want you to know their spot, don't want you to know their technique. And this, to me, just causes more trouble in our world and in our environment, because these people are fishing incorrectly. They're not knowing what species they're bringing up. They're fishing irresponsibly. And our real core here is we want to raise a responsible generation of fishermen, not just the old, for lack of a better word, Guggen, who will actually end up causing more harm to our fishery than anything. If they're going to try and learn, might as well learn the correct way. We stuck by this messaging throughout the whole, we're still sticking by this messaging. And, that's really, I feel like what has been helping us push us forward is to have that value beyond just us being a fishing YouTube channel. We have a lot of values that we stick by, and we've stuck by for 3-4 years now.
Yeah. Well, there's something to be said about, how you guys have kind of gone about it. And it's very, to me, it's very profound, right? I mean, you guys started from nothing. You had an idea, which in the world of the internet is so cool, how now more than in any time ever in history that you can literally have an idea come into your head, and then you could have that idea materialize into something that you do every day and make a good living at. Right. So, and it all started with this YouTube channel, right? And creating this platform. And I have so many questions. But what I really want to kind of dive into is like the core of why you got into fishing, right? Like, why is it that some people decide to get into cars? Why is it some people, want to go be a pilot? But for you guys, it was, no, we want to teach people how to fish, and I kind of, I feel like we're kind of cut from the same cloth to some degree, because for me, this whole show and what I've always done in my life, and when I take people out on a boat or on a charter, it's teaching people how to love the ocean, right? And you guys are a little bit more specific. You guys are teaching people how to fish. So Brendan, Amanda, Aaron, like, how did this all kind of begin for you in terms of learning how to fish, getting into the outdoors? Was this something that you started like in as in your childhood, or was this something that you kind of grew into because of the brand and the company?
I'll start with this
Yeah,
one.
go ahead.
So I've been fishing since I was a little kid with my dad.
Okay.
It was different when I was fishing with him versus when I stopped fishing and rediscovered it all for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And you ask like, why this over, like being any other career, any other field? Fishing for me has always been freedom. It's being out on the water and having to solve problems that like the rest of the world doesn't matter. I'm solving like some real problems here. Where is that fish? Or like what are the conditions that Mother Earth is telling me about right now, and how can this lead me to finding myself some food, some fish, and a relaxing afternoon. But for me, learning how to fish without my dad there was just diving into a whole new world of what I like to think of as freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say for me, it was really only once we started doing it together that I got into fishing. I've always been like an outdoor lover, like an animal, nature, flowers, birds kind of person. But once we started, especially like traveling up and down the coastline, I think, going to different places and seeing that, like, first of all, this is like a huge thing. Second of all, if you kind of like speak this language and you kind of know what's going on, it's like you're in like a worldwide club,
Right.
Like
Yep.
if you can go anywhere and talk about fishing, and like you're going to be able to talk to other people who fish.
Yeah.
I think one of the funniest things is Emma here is a complete vegan.
Yeah.
But
oh, really?
More about fishing than half of our fans. Because
that's pretty funny.
Continually edits and learns more and more about like the ocean and the different techniques to catch fish and their habitats, the different baits. But you don't even have to fish to like fishing.
Right. And I think that's like the great thing is it connects people. It's about more than just the fish. It's about the people and that connection with family, with friends, with strangers. It kind of just brings people together on the water.
Absolutely. And that's such a great point. And you brought up this the idea of like having the same language, right? And that's super important because even from like a cultural perspective, if you go into, on the Cape, right? I mean, I watched one of your guys' videos. You came on fished on the Cape and you met Neil from On the Water magazine.
Yeah.
I know Neil. Neil's a great guy. And so it's a small world, right? And, but the idea of like having this language and this culture behind fishing is so unique, and it's unique because it's on the coast. Not a lot of people do it. I mean, if you live within 5 miles away from the shoreline or from any body of water, the likelihood of you learning fishing is pretty slim. But if you do, it's that small group of people that really know what they're doing. And what I think is cool is a little bit of a story is when I moved to Hawaii as a captain, it was very easy for me to integrate with that culture, because they're ocean based, right? So, whereas another friend of mine, when we moved there, it was a little bit harder for him to kind of get to know people, because he wasn't a captain. He wasn't someone on the water living and breathing the culture of Hawaii, which is so, based around and in the ocean. So I can totally understand in your purpose and in the drive behind creating this YouTube channel and creating what is now Hey Skipper. So, my question to you is when you guys start this thing and you're making videos, there's that point of, man, should I put this thing out? Like, what should I talk about? What kind of camera should I use? Like, how did you go about building this platform of YouTube? Because quite frankly, I've never talked to anyone yet who's really built a substantial YouTube following. And in a world now where the internet is all based on how many people you can have, listening to you and building an audience, that's super important. And you can pretty much springboard any idea off of these people and see what sticks, and it's seems like whatever you guys have done has stuck, right? And I mean, that's why we're talking to each other. But what was that like in the very beginning stages? Like, what was it? You guys are in college, right? You're trying to figure this whole life thing out, and then you have this YouTube channel, and you're like, what do I do? You know? So walk me through that.
You want to do this?
Okay. So in college, Brendan was a graphic designer, right?
Mhm.
And I actually studied theater. My sister actually studied theater as well. So
Oh,
we
nice.
identify as storytellers, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And
And where'd you guys go to college?
Brendan and I went to UMBC,
University of Maryland,
Baltimore County.
Okay.
And my sister Emma here went to West Virginia University.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
A
so
little bit shoreward.
so it was like, first of all, a blend of the skills that we already had, right? Like I like putting stories together. Brendan is a beautiful graphic designer. He already loves fishing. We actually worked on a project together in school that was about making a film in 1 week. And we submit this film.
It was a competition called the Campus Movie Festival, where you had 3 days to put together a film against schools nationwide.
Right.
And there's awards for like best picture, best acting, best design. And we had 3 days to put this video together. And we just kind of hustled and did it, and ended up winning every prize that there could have been.
So that was like the first taste of like, first of all, we work really well together. Second of all, we can put together stuff really fast. And so while we were in school, we started like fishing different places. Like we went to Montauk in that September, I remember.
Oh yeah,
and then we did that, which was just like a whole like eye-opening experience of wow.
That was our first taste of, well, we got some good views on that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So we were filming just kind of our journey fishing there, and just made some videos about that. And then we went to like upstate New York and did the salmon run there. So those were just like experiences that we wanted anyway, right? And we just started filming them, and people just slowly started watching. And then from then on, it was like, okay, well, like, let's make this a consistent thing. What can we put out every week, right?
So if I'm trying to give some solid advice to anyone who's trying to start their own channel, it's put out, yes, do those experiences you want to do, but look at your data and how many views that you're getting on these videos. The ones that are not getting as much views, stop making those kind of content. The videos that are getting a lot of views, keep making those content, and you just keep following this direction, and eventually you'll see something. A very common question that I get is, well, what kind of cameras are you using? I just feel like I'm not ready to start my channel yet until I have, that 4K camera, 3 GoPros, all this other stuff.
Right.
Our past 3 videos were filmed on our iPhones.
Yeah.
And that's today.
Really?
Today. That's
Just
today.
Huh.
Like, if you think about
Get out of here.
watching your channel, it's not people who are watching it on huge projector screens, movie TV screens. So 4K was kind of not really for us to work with. People were watching it on a screen this big. So 1080p was perfectly fine. And working with 4K footage just always takes so much computer space.
We tried it.
Yeah.
That trip we went to upstate New York, we borrowed a school camera, their most expensive camera, their nicest camera, shot it all in 4K, and realized it's going to take 48 hours to drop this footage, just to drop it.
Jesus.
Right.
And we have everything already filmed in 4K.
Right. Workflow slows down to a crawl at that point.
We were in trouble. We just did not have the power to even work with it. But I think at this point, right, where we're like, okay, we could upgrade to like better cameras. We definitely could. Better this, better that. But like, part of it is I like to be a home creator, and like the feeling of being a home creator on YouTube is, I think, like really different. If you think about, some of your favorite, even just TV shows, like the first or second season, when they're like I always like Trailer Park Boys. I don't know if you've seen Trailer Park Boys, but like the type of camera that they're shooting on, it just feels different once they get like later in the season.
It's okay to have those hand wobbles, and it's okay for it not to be the perfect shot. It's okay that it's not like the highest quality, because we're home creators and we're not trying to be a professional TV show or anything like that. We're just, a family team here, just putting together some fun memories on YouTube, trying to teach people how to fish at the same time.
But like the whole vibe, is just doing it scrappy, like MVP.
Right.
We always say, like, the minimum viable product that you can do.
Yeah.
What's the least amount you can do and it still be completely acceptable?
Right.
Right. Yeah. Well, and it's funny, I'm sure you guys have heard of Gary Vaynerchuk, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You ever heard of him?
He was amazing.
Everyone is amazing, right? So he talks about the fact of documenting and not creating, right? And that's exactly what you guys did. You guys went around. You're like, I like to go fishing. Let's go to Montauk, and shoot, let's just bring a camera and see what happens, right?
Yep.
So this whole idea of documenting your life on the water and fishing eventually led you through college and creating these videos. So when you first started seeing this traction and being like, oh man, like we had 0 followers and now we had 1,000, and then you had 2,000, 3,000. Now you're at the last I checked was like 300,000 plus, right?
Almost 4. We're like 392 or something.
That's a lot of people. I mean, I always put it in perspective of like of like if you were to sit in front of an audience, and all of a sudden you had 400,000 people listening to you. I mean, that'd be pretty intimidating. That's like well over a super, like a football stadium, right? That's a lot that's a lot of freaking people. So at what point did you guys say like, all right, well, college, we're getting through college, and we have this whole decision of, all right, well, what's next? Do we stick with YouTube, or do we kind of do it part-time like you said in the beginning, and just try and find something else, and this will be like our side hustle? So you won this competition, which seems to me like it was a really big turning point as to making that decision, and maybe even made it a little bit easier because you had this validation behind you saying, all right, if other people believe in us and we have this following, we have a platform, now we can actually make that next step. Can you kind of give me like a little insight as to what that looked like, that transition?
It was a little bit more than just winning that money. That money that's fine, but I think the most important part is that we were surrounded by family, and we were surrounded by people who were just like being our cheerleaders and really supporting us and giving us the correct mentorship. So not only did we win the money, but we kept following up with our business teachers and kept working with them and getting more and more advice from them. Between my mom is also a really big factor in this as well, because she's very, very smart at this kind of stuff, and she gave me mentorship and really helped us foster how do we work together, how do we be more productive, and how this is really going to work out in the long run. So it's not just money, it's being surrounded by people who are uplifting you and also smarter than you and also mentoring you. I couldn't have done any of this by myself. I couldn't do any of this by myself to this day. I need to have this support system where we all support each other and we mentorship each other and we rise each other up.
Absolutely. That team mentality, right? Like it takes a village. And now, sit in front of me, like it's not just you, Brennan. It's, Aaron, it's Emma. Like you guys are a cohesive team. And you talked about this, in depth in terms of like, it's a family business, like this is not just one person, right? And it takes a village to build something like this. So, was there like, what were some of the like beginning experiences of really working together as a family, and why do you think that's kind of pushed you guys into being so successful?
So I would say I definitely remember when it was just you and me, or it felt like it was just you and me, and we had our mentors, but it was like just me and Brendan in a room being like, okay, what's the goal for this next 2 weeks? What is the goal for YouTube? What's the goal for this social media? Are we like working with anyone else? What are we trying to do? Setting those goals every 2 weeks, and just seeing, important. Are we going to hit that? And it eventually got to a point where there was so much work to be had that I was like, okay, like we really need help, because right now we're just executing so much. We can't even think about new ideas,
Right.
And that was kind of when Emma joined us. Well, Steven joined us first, right?
Yeah, our cousin Steven joined us first to help with web work and whatnot. But what our huge part of our work is our videos, and watching through those videos itself just takes hours just to watch through the footage before you build anything.
Right.
And the whole process of handing this down to Emma was scary to us.
Yeah,
It was
Mhm.
not an easy thing. Like, hey, Emma, just take our footage. You know, I trust you can do it.
Right.
Because before it was like me, like it felt, like
It's your baby.
like, yeah, and it was like my child. Like I felt so attached to every episode and like
Mhm.
my footage and like I did this and I had this idea and it was like I remember Emma even being like, "Hey guys, like I'm graduating. She's done some little projects with us. Like, do you need any help?" And I was like,
Right.
"Actually, I don't think we need any help." Yep. And she
Mhm.
was like,
Well, why don't you talk
really
about
think
your
you could
experience a
use
little
some
bit, Emma?
help." Yeah.
What do you remember when you first came on? Like, what up until now? Like, what has your work experience been like? It's been fun here, right?
Yeah, no, it's been a lot of fun.
You got to make an Indeed.com like a recommendation right now. You go for it, Emma. What are you gonna say?
I remember coming on, and at first I wasn't even doing videos. I was doing like other social media research for them because I had experience in like Instagram and promoting things through Instagram because I had worked as a intern for a book subscription box company before, and I had to promote things online. So when I came on board, I was originally like doing research like that for them, which then turned into, hey, we're really busy trying to plan all this other stuff. Maybe we could have you like start playing around with our footage a little bit. We want you to shadow us for it was a long time.
Yep.
It was a long time.
A very long shadowing period.
But yeah, I mean, there's this moment of trust, right? And like, I'm kind of going through that, in the stuff that I'm doing. Like, I just brought on someone that can do some editing and some writing for me, and I'm like, all right, well, is she going to be able to kind of, serve the same message that I've been trying to portray? And like, what is that going to look like? And how is this all going to pan out? And the formatting, like all the nitty gritty stuff. But at some point, you just gotta have that trust, right? And on the same token, like I work full time, so my employer has to have the same trust in me. So it's kind of interesting how that all kind of comes back around, and now I'm experiencing it, and it's a very cool experience. So, as you guys started to kind of go down this path of, the YouTube channel became a lot more serious. You had a really big following, and this became a full-time job. Was there ever a moment of like waving the white flag, like, oh man, this is tiring? Or was it always just go, go, go? Like, this is awesome. I wouldn't want to do anything else.
I think it's more the second one. Honestly, it's just been nonstop, action-packed fun. Like, yes, sometimes bad things happen where we completely fail at something that we thought we were. But here, we really like to celebrate those kind of failures because we learn from them very quickly. So our mentality here is when we fail fast, we learn very fast from it as well. So we're okay with mistakes as long as we learn from them. But early on, we knew that YouTube money was not going to be enough for us to just have a career just on YouTube. The whole YouTube algorithm and Google, how AdSense pays you, is all at their expense, and you have pretty much no control over that whatsoever. So we knew early on we're going to have to really develop our values and develop some products that go along with our branding and actually serve to actually help people and be innovative and different than everyone else. So we didn't look into making a fishing rod because every company has a fishing rod and they're going to be way better than me. So we were really looking outside of the box to try and figure out products that no one else is really offering. And we offer stuff like ebooks and online courses to teach you how to fish, to teach you where to look at structure. And I use my graphic design skills that I learned in college to put together all of these beautifully animated ebooks that make it really easy for people to learn. That was our first idea, where we don't need to ship anything out. We have the product. It helps everyone, and we don't have to ship anything. People can just download it right away. This really started help supplementing our income because YouTube money is very shaky. You don't know what you're going to get. And even if you get a lot of views, the advertisers could just decide it's just not worth that much money. So it ends up being a lot less than you would think. After our PDFs, we came up with this other we noticed this problem about.
Right. So I was gonna say we use that YouTube, especially in the first year, to talk to people who are watching us, right? And be like, hey, like, what are some problems that you're having while you're fishing? It was a problem for us that we couldn't find hardly any resources that were trustworthy and all concise and put together and updated for like the more modern time. Right. So we had our own problems of like, hey, we're trying to learn this certain kind of technique, but I cannot find anything about it anywhere. So once we were actually putting it into our own practice, that was when we were saying, hey, we can actually create resources for people to solve those same problems. Another problem that we worked on solving was with bait, and now we're like making way more bait than I would have ever anticipated when we first started this YouTube thing. But it came from the problem of people not being able to keep live bait, wanting to fish with live bait, coming off of their hooks. And so we created a product of salted baits that are super durable on the hook. They're really effective for like many, many different fish.
They don't go bad.
Yeah.
They don't smell. The best part about it is that, there's products like fish bites and other kind of like plasticky things that you're throwing into the ocean. This bait here is completely biodegradable because it's just bait.
It's bait.
Plus it's bait. our recipe for our salt mixture. So even if you lose your stuff, even if you lose your bait, it's fine. It doesn't cause any kind of problems in the ecosystem. Whereas like when people use soft plastic, we really try and not use so much of that because they end up in the fish's stomach. They end up all over the ocean. And just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. And it's just too much of it. So if we can help it, let's try and not use that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I would say from the beginning, it was
solving problems was
less major. About like YouTube views, and in fact, we were like trying to set goals of I want to hit this many subscribers, I want this many views, but there was only so much we could do. Like we were trying our hardest with every episode. So it was less about the views and more about the depth of how we understand the people who are watching and how we can start solving actual problems for them. Yeah,
I think a major part of what we do and my passion here is I love solving problems. I love finding the problem, figuring out what it is that's causing it, and then coming up with something to solve it. And it can be anything. It can be anything. I just apply it to fishing with this company. But in my general life, I just love to solve problems. I think that kind of approach, when you're trying to help people want help. So if you're giving out genuinely good advice, people are going to listen.
Absolutely. And it's so unique, right? Because and I keep on saying, the internet. I keep referring that back to it because never have we ever had a time like this when you can be in college, make a YouTube channel, and then come up with this idea of having salted bait, right? And producing ebooks and adding more value to someone's life. Because at the end of the day, right? Any brand, any company, the number one goal should always have more value than when they came onto that website or when they stepped foot into that business, because that's what companies and entrepreneurs and businessmen are all about, right? It's providing more value. Now, the beauty of it is now you can provide value at volume and at scale to someone. You guys could be in Maryland, and you can provide value to someone in Bali. Right? Like it doesn't matter. And that's the cool thing about it. So I kind of want to dive into this whole salted bait thing, right? Because it's very unique, and as someone who's a fisherman and who loves to use, live bait or, obviously, dead bait in some respect too. But like squid, for instance, I love going fluking, right? I love going, out to Block Island, doing some jigging for, black sea bass, tautog, fluke. Tautog I typically use green crabs, but for everything else, it's squid, right? So, how did you guys come up with this idea of kind of something and using a technique that's rather primitive? Salting meat has been done forever, but you guys were like, hey, I want to dip some squid in it and then see what happens, and then now we have Hey Skipper, and you guys are selling salted bait. So where did this all come up? Like, who came up with the idea and how did it all start?
Well, in my culture, there's a lot of salt preserved things. So
Mm-hmm.
I go to the supermarket and I see stuff that looks salted already, and I see like fish that's already salted. I'm like, well, I know my grandma salts things sometimes. Maybe I should ask grandma how to salt something. And then she really helped introduce me to all the different things that can go into it. And it's been a real process trying to figure it out, because there's not many documents or much history about this salting process.
Mm-hmm.
It's very kept, like, I don't know where to find it. So it's a matter of really a process of trial and error. But she had a lot of really great tips to help me get started.
In fact, she used to help. Like, she was like,
oh, was she really?
like doing it with us.
So she used to help us do it all. And now I pretty much, the deal is I catch her fish for the rest of her life if she wants fish. So I've been bringing her fish every single time I go fishing, or pretty much every time I go on a trip, I bring her back some fish. But she's really the one who really helped kind of facilitate the learning of how to salt things.
Mm-hmm. And what does that process look like? Like, are you guys, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but are you guys taking this and like taking kosher salt from the grocery store and dumping it over the fish? Or because it seems like there's a more in-depth process than someone just grabbing fish.
It's a mixture of things that go into that salt mixture. And it's a matter of how long it sits in there and how long it sits drying as well. It's a multiple part process that has, like, it's been a real process to try and figure out, and we're just getting it down now, but it has to do with how long it sits and how much moisture can you keep in there without taking out the scent, because you can salt a piece of bait, but that takes out all of the scent and all of the moisture, and it's useless. It's not squiddy bits. It's not the baits that we make. It's a very unique process that we're still kind of trying to work out and see if we can do it any quicker. But every single bait that we sell, every single piece of it goes through either Aaron's hands or my hands. So it's a real labor of love here.
Yeah.
And it also feels good because we're kind of continuing the tradition of salting. Something that not really many people do still, and not many people talk about.
Right. So now, growing up, was this something that you always saw your grandmother doing? Like, this was a part of your culture growing up?
I would remember eating salted stuff.
Okay.
And then it's kind of just like the memory of that. And then I remember that, and I asked my grandma, because I hadn't eaten that in a while, and she had helped me get into that.
Yeah, I would also say that, like, you touched on it earlier, it's like, it's a very old method of preserving meat. Like, before there was refrigeration, like, there are Egyptian hieroglyphs of people drying fish, salting fish, it's like a very old method, and I think everyone has their own secret recipe to it in a way. At its base, it's just taking moisture out of the meat in order to preserve it. Like Brendan said, we've gone through many a trial and error,
many failures,
many, and it, like, the difference in humidity, the difference in temperature, the difference in this and this, and if we defrost it and this, like,
you remember a couple of catastrophes last year, remember?
Yeah, and there's still some different experiments in the fridge down there with our stuff.
We're always experimenting with new formulas, new recipes, new time. And we always have these small batches of experiments going at the same time, just so that we can continue working on perfecting what we think is the perfect salted bait.
Right. So now I don't want you guys to give away too much of, like, obviously there's, some secrets here, right? You don't want to give it all away, but, like, at its essence, like, what are some of those learning, what are some of the learning hurdles that you guys kind of came across when you were, trying to figure out the formula? Was it temperature? Was it the amount of salt? Was it the variability of, Aaron said, defrosting versus, fresh killed bait? Like, what does that all look like?
It looks like a lot of salt.
A lot of salt.
Pounds of salt. That's what it looks like.
It's all of those problems that you said. Literally all of them have to be taken into account, down to how fresh is the bait that we're getting before we salt it. If it's not good bait, then the salted bait is not going to be good. So it needs to be great bait. So sourcing all this stuff is a whole nother ballpark that is, like, Yeah, it's just a lot. Just thinking about the sourcing, but in terms of the different variables as well, everything you said, it's down to the temperature, how long it sits in there for, how cold is the room that it's in that's salting. Is that room temperature changing? It's just so many different factors that you just have to start at square one and just start recording and start writing things
just
down.
figure it out.
Yeah.
In fact, we made this box, right? Because so for instance, one of the issues that we were trying to solve, I think last year or the year before, was the place that we make our bait, right? Seasons change. It's hotter in the summer and it's cold in the winter.
Good point.
And that affects the time that it takes for it to salt, right? So we were trying to make this like perfectly temperature controlled box, and like these experiments where this, it would like heat up if it gets below a certain temperature and cool it off if it gets above a certain temperature, and trying to really figure out what are the exact conditions that we need. That was like a whole experiment.
Jesus.
Yeah.
It's pretty in depth.
Like it's like four people just sitting in together just trying to figure out if anyone else saw what we were doing, they'd be like, what the heck are you guys doing?
Right.
So,
well, it sounds as though like you guys are all sitting around the island in the kitchen, just like, so how are we going to make this better salted bait, more salty or less, moisture, or just having all these random questions and ideas and just having to go experiment and try it out, because there's no one else doing this. So you guys are the only ones. There's no YouTube. Well, I mean, you are the YouTube channel, so there's no going to YouTube it, right? So how's this stuff been working out? I mean, what are the differences in using, this salted bait? Because I can see a whole myriad of, solutions that you guys are solving with it, right? I mean, even just down to the fact that if you want to come in the night before and put bait on your boat, you're not going to wake up to it smelling like, fish, right? But walk us through some of the other, solutions that you guys have come up with by creating this salted bait.
So this bait can sit in the refrigerator for a year. I mean, I still have bait that I experimented from last year, and it's perfectly fine, perfectly usable. This can just sit for a long time.
Dad, you have some in there from 2018 that is still good.
Jesus.
Throw it away.
I refuse.
That was our like test number one. So, and it's still strong. So that's one of the major things, is that it can stay without refrigeration. So people who don't want to go to the tackle shop, they can just go straight to the beach or straight to wherever they want to go fishing for a couple hours. They don't want to hit up the tackle shop. So they just have this in their backpack or have this in their refrigerator. So anytime they want to go, they have freshly preserved baits. Right. Another thing is, with fresh baits, they come off the hook really easily. They work really well, and especially in combination with this bait, because you put the fresh bait on for the scent, and then you put the body of it is the actual salted squid. So you end up losing a lot less fresh bait and catching a lot more fish. Here, if you're going out for black sea bass or you're going fluking, a lot of times you're dropping it pretty deep. And it takes 30, 40, 50 seconds to get it all the way to the bottom sometimes. And by the time you get to the bottom and you feel a small fish peck it, that could be your fresh bait gone. So you have to reel it all the way back up and check to see that, oh, wait, it's still there. Damn, I'm going to drop it all the way back down. You could have gotten 3 fish at that time. With our bait, you keep it on there, and when it's down there, it's going to be on there still. So you really set the hook on the fish that really count. That's another.
So it's almost like an insurance policy, if you will.
Yeah.
Like you're kind of putting it down there, knowing that it's going to stay on the hook. Which, for me at least, I mean, that's always a big issue, right? You these sneaky sea bass are always, lurking around, pecking your bait off your hook. Not to mention the ecosystem that they're living in, right? It's not a flat sandy bottom. I mean, for fluke it is, but for a sea bass, they're in these rocky outcroppings, and sometimes you get snagged up and you got to kind of pull it. So knowing that your bait's still on the hook is certainly a plus. Now, do you find that is it as equal or better than live bait? Or, I mean, not live bait, but like fresh bait?
So when we're talking like dropping for black sea bass, there's absolutely no difference. Or for fluke, there's no difference. And we put it on the back of a bucktail for striped bass, no difference.
Really?
But if you're like in an inshore setting and the fish are picky, they're gonna eat up the live bait over this all day. But it's usually when we put the live bait together with this, that's really where the value shines, because you don't have to use nearly as much live bait. The bait works great without live bait, but when you put up a little bit of live bait, it really brings it alive.
Right. Freshly
Interesting.
pressed, but freshly preserved
Is
is
second
secondary.
Freshly preserved. I like it. I like that. Do you guys coin that phrase and put it on your stuff?
Right, but maybe
Haven't
it
thought
should
about
be.
that yet. Maybe we should.
I like it.
We coined real squid, real tough. That's what we.
Oh, I like that too. I like that too. Yeah, branding department over there is pretty good. So, you guys have mentioned, the idea is awesome, right? What you guys have done, created this platform and built this audience is just incredible, right? And it started with nothing, absolutely nothing, and something that no one else is doing, and you've created something, which I think is really cool. But, the underlying motives behind this have always been providing value, what it seems like, and then also teaching people how to fish. And there's a lot of importance to that, and that's a very profound thing to really go about your life and choose to do something for others rather than just going to your 9 to 5 job, which is totally fine, right? Some people love that, but there's something to be said about kind of taking a risk and doing it on your own. So can you kind of speak to that in the sense that you guys went one route when really everyone else was kind of pointing you to a different route, because going to college is you're supposed to go into the workforce, right? You're supposed to go to that 9 to 5. As much as universities want to say that, oh, you should go start this, you want to do that, it's up to you,
I was the
So
guy. I was the kind of guy who would D's get degrees, C's get degrees. Just passed my freaking class. I mean,
yeah.
it took me an extra 3 years to get through college. It's not exactly my my kind of environment, like that way of being tested. Some people are great at that kind of stuff, and
Yeah.
like that's great. But for me, it wasn't like that. And to be made feel to me like I felt like I was lesser. I
Mm.
wanted to be felt like I was like lesser than because I couldn't keep up with the grades or I couldn't keep up with schoolwork the same way that my peers were. So that kind of motivated me to say like, you know what, I don't need to go this route,
Right.
I want to make my own route here.
Hmm.
And that has really been my attitude since like college, high school, because I did so poorly in all that stuff, and I knew I wasn't stupid, I can't
Yeah.
test like that. You guys can, but I'm good at the things that I like to do. It doesn't mean
Right.
that I'm any lesser than you. You're not any lesser than me. Um, and really, it was kind of just motivation for me to really go against all odds and take a risk and do something different. And
Hmm.
I'm smarter than academics say that I am.
Right.
I would say for
Right.
me, it was like a little bit different because I think academics were really like emphasized for me growing up, and I was like generally pretty okay at school and very focused on school.
Hmm.
But when it came to like, I remember looking for jobs while I was in college and being like, this is what I think I'm going to do after school. And it
Hmm.
was a total risk. Like, it felt like a really big risk at the time to
Right.
go against what most people do, and to see all my
Yeah.
people that I graduated with, they have these jobs, and I'm working on this project, which at the time I was like, I don't even know if I can like talk too much about it. I'm proud of it,
Right.
but yeah, it felt like a risk, and it was just kind of one of those things where you feel like what you're doing is it has to be going somewhere. And I had this support system of Brendan, his mom, our mentor,
Hmm.
our family, but to still, there were some people, who were like, hey, is it really working? You can just
Yeah.
be doing this, but you
Right.
just have to, I guess, just be that fish that's swimming upstream and trust that you know where you're going, or you're going to figure it out on your way there.
Right, right. And then Emma, you coming into this and working as a family, right? I mean, there's risk involved with that too. Like there's or you know what? I don't think risk is really the right word here, right? Because in a lot of sense, and Emma, I still want you to kind of chime in on your 2 cents, but you know, in my eyes, it's almost more risky to go a route and do the 9 to 5 and kind of grind out and then hope that 25 years down the road that you're going to get a cool watch and be unhappy. Like that seems more risky than risking, putting in the time day in and day out and then being able to create a YouTube channel and create a business called Hey Skipper, right? And be able to touch all these different people and then give them a platform to go to for their passion, right? That seems less risky because it's like ample happiness, right? Like you could be more happy or you could be less happy. Like which one do you want to do, you know? And, you know, Emma, what was your kind of take on coming into this and saying like, hey, what do I want to, you know, how do I want to contribute? And what was that transition for you? Because you had just graduated college as well.
Right. I actually started working for them like pretty much immediately after I graduated. I came home and immediately got on board. By the time that I really started working for them, I would say that the business was already pretty established. But I will say, like, the work that we do is not like your typical 9 to 5. Like, we all get together and have such a good time working together. Like, you can enjoy on everyone's faces. We love telling stories. We love helping people. And that's exactly what drew me to this job. Because, like my sister said earlier, like, we were both in theater. We're definitely both big storytellers, and being able to dive into this footage and being able to create the stories that I want to, and to be able to put this out to thousands of people viewing is it's great. It's insane. And like, even if I'm like, oh, I'm kind of disappointed that didn't get as great of views, like you said earlier, like that's why she was giving me a look earlier, because what you said about like, imagine an audience of this many people, that's exactly what we do. And we're like, it might not have touched everyone, but we know it touched the people that it needed to.
Tell them about the customer service that you read through too. Like,
oh, it makes me so happy.
So, we get some really, really awesome comments from people in our customer service that like really just make it so that this is why we understand why we're doing this. Like the testimonies that we get from people writing to us from all over the world. Like, well, give some examples.
Like we have some even like kids reaching out to us and saying that they're getting into fishing because of us, and they're getting their parents, their siblings excited, and they're going out with their whole family in nature. Or there are those who have experienced loss in their lives, and our channels help them to find like a new passion for themselves to share with other people. It's the whole idea of just bringing everyone together to go outside in nature and have a good time and build some memories.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's such a powerful thing to get from someone, right? Because not only does it validate what you guys are doing, but it really kind of speaks true to the mission behind, you know, the whole process, right? Whether it be Hey Skipper, the YouTube channel, the whole everything, right? And it's telling this story of the outdoors and of conservation and of, you know, really what it means to go out and sit by the ocean or by the lake and just be, you know. And I think it's really cool that you guys were both in theater, you know, and obviously Brennan, you have talent as well in there, even though you didn't go there formally, because
they both coach me a lot.
Oh, so there you go. Yeah. I don't know too much about theater either.
I don't want to put up a show right now. I'm just fishing. Like, please just get the cameras out of my face. But they always help me find my center and get me back into that mode, and you know, have that smile and have that energy again. And you know, that's I'm also very grateful for that as well.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah. Well, in a way, I mean, you guys are really telling the story of the outdoors. You know, like that's what you guys are doing. And you know, I always say, like, when I was on the charter boat, it was always this person traveled this far to, you know, middle of the ocean, Hawaii, like 5,000 miles, any direction you want to go. And they came and they chose my boat, right? They chose to come with me on my day. And it wouldn't be right for me to not give that person the experience they deserve, right? Because that person could have saved up every single penny, you know, for their honeymoon to come out and go out on the boat and see a whale, and never having seen a whale in their entire life. Now, for me, I got to see whales every day. So 1 whale, 2 whales are awesome. Every single time I was like, this is a total blessing. But after 10 days of straight whales, you're like, all right, it's another whale, you know? I mean, let's be honest. Like, Brendan, you catch thousands of fish. You're like, yeah, I love this fish. This is a great fish. But like, it's another fish, you know, at the end of the day. So, you know, I guess my point is, like, you guys really take the opportunity to really be with your consumer, right? And be with your listener and your viewer, and you know, being able to teach that person, you never know what's going to come about that, right? That person could go work for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife and change, you know, the course of how we do, you know, fisheries and wildlife management, right? You don't know that, right? And you guys getting these emails saying, hey, you know, I just found fishing and this is now my new hobby because of you. How does that make you feel?
Like, this is way bigger than us. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, I get multiple messages from different people saying, look, I was in a really bad place. I was contemplating suicide. I have cancer. I have, you know, insert something very bad. Yeah. And look, you really, really helped me get out of a dark place. And you could have saved my life here. And I just want to reach out and say thank you. Mm-hmm. When I get message, like I'm getting goosebumps just telling you about this, because this is bigger than me. This is bigger than just our company. It's spreading love and getting love back. And mm-hmm. That's really what's going to keep things going around the world. We need to have like this kind of love be spread. And I just feel very fortunate, and I feel like I have a lot of responsibility and a lot of people to make sure that I'm keeping them happy. Mm-hmm. That's what it feels like. Yeah. A lot of pressure.
Yeah.
But it's also, you know, like
it's what drives us.
The reason that we're doing this is being fulfilled in a way. You know, it's like, this is why we're doing it. And to hear that mm-hmm. it's actually, you know, affecting people is very fulfilling. That's just, you know, confirmation that we're doing the right thing here. And we got to keep doing this because we're helping a lot of people.
Yeah.
And when you feel like your job is actually impacting people and actually making a difference in this world, you got to keep at it.
Right. You're doing something right at that point, right? I mean, something's going right? It's not just, the cool thing is you're selling, you know, a lot of different resources, whether it's your ebooks or your, you know, your courses and so on and so forth, and you're providing an awesome show, but you know, it's not just salted squid, right? It's not just that, right? There is a bigger picture and a bigger motive behind, you know, the what you guys are doing. You know, it's kind of hard to describe the feeling you must get, and even hard to ask the question as to like, how does this really make you feel? But man, I mean, I can't tell you guys how cool it is to be able to sit down here and talk to you guys about what you guys have done. You know, owning in this company and creating it and starting a YouTube channel. If someone was out there listening and wants to know really at its core what it takes to go ahead and just start, because I think that's, you know, with a YouTube channel, there's something very special about that. There's something about putting yourself out there and putting the camera on and just going for it, you know? And it's, you know, a lot of other brands, like you can start a t-shirt brand and you could put it out there, put it all on the line and really be upfront about it. But it's not the same as putting yourself on camera, right? When the camera's on you, there's something a little bit different than that, than doing some sort of startup company with like snow plowing or, you know, lawn care or whatnot, because the camera's on you. Like they see Brendan, Aaron, and Emma, right? So what is that? What would that look like if you were to say, you know, the first things you got to do is start? Like, what would you suggest?
Look at what you're good at already. Look at your resources you have right now, and don't think I need this to be able to do this. Like if you're not good on camera, don't try and all of a sudden be great on camera. There's mm-hmm. plenty of channels where they don't even show their face. They're just showing their hands working on something. Don't give yourself excuses as to why you cannot do it. Think about the stuff that you're really good at right now, stuff that you love to do and that you're great at right now, and fully utilize that. And also keeping in mind in what way are you going to be different than people? That's also another really important thing to think about. Is there's so many Joe Schmoes right now with just a YouTube of them fishing. You know, why watch them fishing, no name, versus watching someone huge name fishing? What kind of value are you going to provide and differentiate yourself from everyone else that's posting? And for us at the time, it was teaching how to fish. But now it's like there's so many people trying to teach how to fish that, like, if you were to try and start a channel teaching people how to fish, you have a lot of people to compete with. So what we like to do is look for what we call a blue ocean. A blue ocean is there's no one to compete with because you're so unique and you're so different that you can just do your thing. You don't have to copy anyone, and you can get a good following because just there's no one else that's doing it.
Right.
I say spend your time looking for that blue ocean and keeping in mind what you're good at right now. And whatever you're bad at, keep that out. You don't need to try and perfect your mistakes or perfect your imperfections. Just learn to maintain it and really work on your strengths. And this is something that my mother has been teaching me since I was a little kid. I was never good at school, but she would always say, you're not good at school, but you know what? You just need to maintain that. Just get the C and pass. What you need to do is work on the stuff that you are good at and just maintain the other stuff. And I think that is just really sound advice for everything. In terms of the YouTube, if you don't have the GoPro, you don't have the 4K, you probably have an Android or an iPhone. Start with that.
Right.
I can't start it until I have that camera, until I have that GoPro, until I get like a sponsorship. To me, I think you're missing a lot of opportunity.
Yeah.
What would you
Absolutely
say?
I think just like what you said earlier, which is, in addition to what you say, is try many different things. Honestly, you know,
I agree.
Put out a bunch of stuff. Not all of it's going to be good, but maybe one will, and then you should say that one was good. I'm going to keep going with that idea
and drop the other ideas.
Yeah, drop the other ones. You know, I think it's you just got to learn by doing. You know, just learn by putting stuff out there, and it might fail. A lot of our stuff, like I remember, you know, when we were getting 200 views on stuff. I totally remember that time. We wake up to like maybe 1,000 views, and we're like, yes, you know.
Yeah.
You just have to start, and I think that's a cliche answer, but you just got to do it. You're not going to learn unless you do it.
Yeah. No, absolutely, and you know, it's like, you know, having that craft, right? Like that one thing that you can kind of come back to every single day, whether it's, you know, if you want to be a writer, well, you got to go write. You know, if you want to be a YouTuber, you got to make videos, right? If you want to be a good, you know, strength athlete or, you know, football player, you got to go do the thing that you want to be good at, you know? And I think so many people get into this whole, you know, they're either too afraid to start or they're just not willing to put in the time and be consistent with that thing, you know? And that's the key is like, you got to be consistent. You got to stick to it. You got to be with it. And, you know, I love the idea and the blue ocean mentality, you know, and just finding that thing that is a little bit easier to get into because, you know, you're already good at it. Like you already know what to do, you know, and versus no one else has really gone with it and taken that shot yet. So, you know, the field is yours at that point, right? So I really like that. And, you know, I think names always have, you know, a certain story behind them. So I'm curious, like, where did Hey Skipper come from?
We started as Senko Skipper. Let's start there.
Psycho Skipper.
Senko. Like Gary Yamamoto, they made Senkos.
You know, oh, okay.
What I'm talking about is like a little plastic worm that's called Senko.
Right.
Okay.
So we started as Senko Skipper because I love to fish for bass.
Because that was your Instagram name, basically.
Well, it all started as a joke. I was like, yeah, Aaron, you know, you didn't know this about me, but I actually have an Instagram and I'm Senko Skipper on there. And I've got like thousands of people following me. I was just like completely like BSing.
Okay. No.
And it's funny that we actually turned it into that. So we got into Senko Skipper, then realized like we want to make this a legit business. Right. And Senko is too close to Gary Yamamoto's trademark term for Senko. Mm-hmm. So we had to quickly adjust and change our name to something different so that we wouldn't be like, you know, I don't want to step on the dude's tail. You know, he came up with Senko. I don't want to take credit for anything related to Senko. That's just not fair. So we ended up switching our name, which was very scary, by the way. Switching our name and also trademarking that name to make sure that we're like legit and we have the name and no one can steal it from us.
But in terms of coming up with that new name, it was literally a process of like brain dump. First of all, we put up a bunch of sticky notes on the wall, the whole team. I don't think you were there, but like Steven was with us and we were just putting up all of these sticky notes. And we knew we wanted it to be reminiscent of our old name of Senko Skipper, but it couldn't have the Senko. And eventually
Yeah.
we landed on Hey Skipper and really decided, yes, that's it, because it felt really approachable. And it felt really like I could talk to these people.
Yep.
And, you know, a lot of people now, like when they see us,
They say, "Hey, Skipper."
They say, "Hey Skipper," you know, and so I really like that now. It's like a greeting, it's like an introduction all in one, you know. Just
very
friendly.
easy to say, hey Skipper, I need some advice. It's nothing too intimidating, not like the fishing lure masters.
Yeah.
It's easy to say, hey Skipper.
Yeah. No, I love it. I love the name. I love everything you guys stand for, and just the story behind it. So I just wanted to say thank you for taking the time. You know, it's been an hour. We've been sitting here BSing, and I just want to thank you guys for coming on and taking the time to be on Along the Keel.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was so fun to talk to you, and thank you for having us.
It's an honor to be on your show.
Yeah.